Hello, Dr. Mike here. This is from my CIS-2266 Python for Data Analysis students. And this is a little quick summary video about the last 2 weeks of the course, which is your project. So week 15 and 16. So first off, we'll talk about the project itself and I'll go into the details. Now, what is the project? So we'll come back to this in a second. What the assignment is, we'll come back to that, but we'll talk about the details here, which is you're going to do some research. Now, you are given, if you like, you can use the provided data sets we have here. We have a police and weather data set for Rhode Island, and I think this is actual real data. And then I'm going to give you some example things to explore. You can also look at other sources. Here's a link here with some, I think these are go to Kaggle. These are some examples here off Kaggle. Cars database, why do employees leave, with some sample questions. So again, I'm sort of give you some examples to use. And lastly is you can use your own data set if you like. Again, you can use your own. This could be, I had a student once do, they're using a sleep tracker, I think off their smartwatch. Did their sleep affect their grades, quizzes and labs, everything, I think, and they use that for their data. And they already had sleep data from the past previous courses, and they had actually their grades too. So, and they also use the current data for the current course, which was Python. If you use them from work, be sure, one, it could be released publicly. Don't use anything sensitive. Some people have used their work data sets. That's fine. Just make sure you're cleared to do this, release this information publicly, as you will be presenting on it, so, and producing a report. So in case, first off, choose your data set. Second, get 1 or 2 good research questions. And I say good research questions. So again, you can see here, based off some examples for the Rhode Island one, I'm going to give you some. You can pick a few that make sense. You might explore the data set and go, actually, I have my own questions. And that's fine. What you don't want to do is come in with a data set and just say, well, what's the average age of the person who got arrested? That's not a really good research question. It is something you will find during your research, but you want a good research question. So there's actually a link here. What's a good research question? I'm not going to read it to you. Just don't come across to this project and say, well, whether I choose the Rhode Island data set, if I get some from Kaggle or have my own, do not just say, what's the average of X? It's pretty weak. So this is why I say only 1 or 2. So second is, after you do this, think of the scope of your research. The question itself, you don't want to come in and redo a decade's worth of data analysis on a huge data set. That's going to require hours of compiling. This is a class project, so keep it simple. 2 really good simple questions that sort of could lend what you have an observation, or you have a question about a data set. Again, if you're stuck on stuff, I even give you some examples here. But you might find sort of one of these and maybe take it and spin it with your own, the first grades by time of day. And that's actually, does time of day affect first grade? So you're asking a question again. So it's important to look at that, and that will set you off in your research. So now the research itself. So week 15, let's talk about, you've chosen this research thing, your research project data set. And so first off, I'm going to jump to 15, and they're going to talk about what you're going to turn in, which is a research report, which I was just at here. So you're going to do a report here, a good summary report, and you're also going to turn in your Jupyter notebook. Jupyter notebook itself, dump the PDF. Should show all your grunge work, right? But the report is a research report. Now, I'll actually give you week 15. There's actually a write-up here on report writing. This is a chapter I got approval from the release for public use. And this is read this on report writing. It's right here. Here it is. From Edward Freeze. I actually talked to him and he gave us the okay to do this. Now I did give you pages 11 to 25, give some examples. 10 pages, so first 10 pages, you don't have to read over the whole thing. It's only 25 pages long, but the first 10 pages are going to give you some idea about how to produce a good report. Again, now this should be in Word. This is not a, you're not going to dump out your PDF and turn that in. In fact, the PDF can be just all your code and data, maybe with your notes. You're going to produce a Word document, and it can be then exported to PDF, or it'll be a PDF document, an actual report itself. And it should go over these aspects here. A title, your name, introduction, characteristics about the data set itself, things we talked about in previous examples, but you want to explore the data. You want to summarize your exploration of it. It could be, I looked at the main statistics, mean, median, mode, and the max. Did find in one data set that the max was way larger than I expected, so we have some outliers. And that's it. These are observations of your data itself. If you're using kind of models or interpretations, your model selection. So, and this is going to previous topics we talk about. You can say, well, based on my data characteristics, both have normal distributions. So I use a standard regression model for doing a comparison. So in case you want to explain anything from this, and this is going to give you some examples how things should look and feel, how plots should look. You don't want to be too busy, not too much on plot. Graphs, try to avoid certain things. Say avoid grid lines if possible. If you must use some, use light gray. So there's some really good stuff here about how to make a good report. Title abstract, and here's an example right here. Title abstract, introduction, data characteristics. So some great material here. Now it might not be very long. The actual report might not be a few pages because you're just doing 1 or 2 questions. And there's very little run-up work maybe. But still you want to at least mention, well, hey, well, when looked at the distribution of both the time of day and ticket, and the cost of tickets, fines that were given, and we saw a normal distribution for both. And also the types of data, maybe you're looking at, maybe you're doing research about cars, model versus weight, and do certain models with by weight have different miles per gallon. So does the model affect that? Is there like a model coefficient there? So like our Chevy's heavier than other vehicles of the same type. So type would be categorical, weight would be continuous data, right? You can start with 1 and go to whatever million pounds, right? So these type of things you want to pull out, and you want to note what they are about your data set. So again, restate of course what your actual key aspects. You want to restate the question. This is what I'm doing. It could be you want to restate it from what's here. You might say, well, I don't want to really state it this way. You might have a better way to restate it. You might have a more refined way to state it. Maybe compare risk rates by gender, by times of the day. Does the time of the day affect risk rates by gender? So, and you're going to use this, and then you're going to use your interpretations. Again, if you use any type of T ratios, things like that. And here you might, in your interpretations, you might actually take parts, you might create a plot, maybe in Seaborn or Matplotlib, create a nice high quality plot and put just that one plot in your thing. You might pull a couple of data aspects from Jupyter Notebook and put that in the report. And again, you gotta be precise. If it's a unit, what's the unit measure? If it's like $1, for example, I mentioned this before. If it's British pounds, don't put the US dollar sign in front of it. You gotta be precise. If it says average, just don't say average. What type of average? Mean, median, mode. These are precisions you're looking for, and you want to deliver in this report. Your summary, your conclusion. And the thing too is you might not have the right answer. And the thing is your answer is based off your interpretation of your data. So you say, based off this data set, My interpretation using these processes is this. However, I think you can further be looked at these 2 or 3 things. It's very common to may list out, I have further questions. This is important in setting your research scope. You don't want to get into an analysis paralysis. You can't spend forever researching this data, especially there's a deadline, which is the due date. There's a deadline for this report, and you want to list out further stuff you could do or you'd like others to do. This is very common. You see this in dissertations a lot, doctorate work. There's always further research that could be done. So it's okay to have that inside there. And also your appendix. Maybe you do have some chunks of code or some more stuff you want to put, maybe a table of all the averages. You think it's important to include that, put it into an appendix if you like. You can pull out one item and say, you can see the max value for car weight here was way more than, we have a few outliers for these 2 or 3 models. See appendix for a full list if you like. So it is your call. The idea really is this report will be based upon your audience. Your audience is going to be me. So think of it a good executive type summary. It's a summary of your research. It's not a dissertation. It's not a full-blown dissertation. Research project that level. So a couple pages, clear, precise. Use things like headers, bullets, paragraphs. Don't put a block of text. You want to break it out. Maybe outline stuff, things like that. So these are just tips here for this. So part 2. So again, hopefully that sets you up for week 15. Talk about 16. So 16, you look at this, you're going to think, what's this? It looks exactly the same. It's the same as it is the same page as the previous week. So you can use the same research work for your presentation in 16. So again, say it again. You can do all the grinding on data, creating your graphs and charts, your summaries, your comparisons, whatever it may be, correlations. I was trying to come up with correlations, or your correlation work, and you want to put that into your report, and you say, oh, now you can produce a research presentation from that report. If you like, for some reason, you want to say, well, I did 15. I did the data set for the police department, Rhode Island. It was cool, but I want to do something else. Feel free to go and do something else. You got to go back and redo all the work again, but that's fine. You have this week to do it. Realize though you need to create a presentation for it. So this is an option. Do not have to use. In fact, you can use the same research in 15 for this presentation. Just FYI, if you want to redo something again, go for it. So with that out of the way, what are you creating? You're going to create a few things here. You're going to have your data analysis, your Jupyter output, your PowerPoint slide deck, and your presentation itself, either video, screen capture, YouTube, hopefully in class. You're going to present your ideas here. So, and I give you some stuff here. I think I gave you, there's a thing about, in this here, there's a thing about how to record presentations. I think it's here in Learn Activities. But there's a link for how to record presentations. PowerPoint, you actually can do it in PowerPoint if you like. So you don't need to set up a camera like I have here. You can actually just have a microphone, and then you can record your presentation as you read the slides. Per se, go through your slides, and then if it's played back, it will get that audio. So whatever method you like to use is for that. But even more important though is, I did put this link inside here. This is a TED blog on creating good slide decks. Probably the number one rule is this: do not take a paragraph of text and plop it on a slide deck and read that paragraph of text out. So that's probably the worst offense you can do. Beyond that, there's things you can look at. Again, think about your slides last, how they should look and feel. Really think about the message itself. Actually, you can build an outline almost. What do I want to talk about from this report? Pick out just the highlights, and then think about the look and feel later. And then it should be consistent. Don't have this different fonts and different parts. If you do copy and paste stuff, make sure the fonts look nice. Transitions, don't use little animations. I mean, unless it adds to the presentation some way, like maybe you have 4 points on your slide deck, and you don't want to just purl 4 points up. You sort of want to expose them as you talk. Then animation makes sense. Just don't use animations because they look cool on explosions and stuff. A nice effective presentation is great, and it's going to make it easier when you present in person or you do a recorded presentation. The less complexity, the easier it is to come across. Less text is actually more. These are talking points. So it could be just a graph. You pick a graph out and you talk to that graph. You point out things, maybe a laser pointer, or your finger, whatever. You're showing stuff about this graph and you're talking to them. Maybe it's 2 or 3 words. Maybe it's a 1 or 2, 3 stats. Maybe it's that max value. Maybe it's something that comes out. Use photos where it makes sense. If you want to add a photo, maybe to add some humor, that's great too. Could be a metaphor. Memes are great, right? Throw a meme in there, make everyone laugh if you like. That works fine. Again, go easy on transitions. I just say just go to the next. You don't need to make it real fancy. It's not about how flashy your slides are. It's about what's inside them. It's the content. You can mask stuff again if need be. Use masking detention images. If you do have an image and you want to call out part of it, you can do some masking. You can do some blurring. You can see here, there's some examples here, and it's like they use a little mask in there to pull out a number. Image use, make sure they're high quality, especially comes from Matplotlib, Seaborn, other pandas, anything that produces plots. There's ways to increase the plot resolution. So look at the code for that. So you might find yourself going back to your research and say, yeah, I want that plot, but if I copy and paste it, it looks bad. It's all blotchy. It's we don't want that. Go back, run that notebook again, but this time add the code to increase the plot, the DPI, and the size. Have a nice, and then send it to disk, and you can put that in there. Have a nice crisp plot. So I would say don't use autoplay. It's up to you. If you do a keynote or PowerPoint, if you have a video inside there, which I don't think you would for this class, but maybe you do, autoplay's tough. It's gonna be hard to get your timing right when it kicks off. Have a play button. Or even better, if you're just recording this like I'm doing here, just have a separate tab and have the YouTube video there. Again, charts and graphs. You don't want to have too much there. I would say don't have pie charts. I use them worst. I would say when it comes to graphs, there's some graph things you'll look at. When it's don't make a 3-dimensional graph. You don't want that big, deep 3-dimensional. It's hard to figure out where the actual lines lie. Also, maybe show scale. I mean, if this is 0 here in this graph, then it makes sense. But you can alter bar graphs by not starting at 0. So always put the start data point inside there, because I can make a bar graph that shows, well, yeah, I didn't see too much difference between X and Y. Here's X and Y in my research. Well, I can sort of alter how it looks. If I start at 20 here, and X and Y, so yeah, this starts at 20 because I started lower here. I'm cutting off stuff down here. So I can make this gap look a little different. So you want to start at 0 if possible to show, unless there's a reason why you need to start at this number. Maybe the graph will be way too extreme, where you get this huge bar and you get just a little tiny thing on the bottom here, which is sort of really unsightly. So in that case, you want to find where it makes sense to show this gap that maybe was expected or unexpected. Find where to cut it off at. Again, worst case you can do is don't do 3D bar graphs, because is this the top? Is this the top? And don't add too much noise to your bar graphs. Clean graphs, simple graphs are nice. This goes for also your research report, but also even more when you actually do this into a presentation. So in any case, that should wrap up here, help you get started. Again, I'm posting this, you'll see this around week 15. There's other videos probably here about, there's other videos before this that go into detail about things like, proper use of data, sanitizing, things like that, error checking. There's other videos for that, so I won't go into that here. So hopefully this gets you started. This will get you going on your final project for this class. Hope this was helpful. Thank you.